Hello there. Welcome to Empower Your Soul podcast. I'm your host, Nicole, and I'm so excited and I was divinely guided to talk about spiritual awakenings today. So if you are going in the middle of it, like one of my friends is right now, or if you've been through it, you know that it is not for the faint of heart. And when I talk about spiritual awakening, I'm talking about folks that have no idea that the spirit world really exists. You have ideas, but you don't live it. It's just a concept in a book or in church or religion that you've learned about, but it is separate from you. And the fact of a spiritual awakening is starting to integrate the spiritual way of being into your everyday life. So for those of you that have seen spirit or been aware of spirit since you were children, you probably have not a massive spiritual awakening like the one I'm going to talk about today, but I'm sure you had your own variation of it. So I'm going to take this conversation for the perspective of you had no idea, and now here it comes, and now you're trying to figure out how to integrate the spiritual into your everyday life. Either way, it is a very interesting time in your life, or an interesting process to go through, because there is a very clear defined before and there's a very clear defined after with a spiritual awakening. And before the awakening, you might identify, and I feel like this was 100% me, that you feel stuck and unfulfilled in life. You really don't have a sense of direction. You are not living in your purpose. You are just constantly grumpy and moody and just dissatisfied from your everyday routines and maybe even your relationships as well. So that was definitely me before my awakening. And then as the awakening starts to happen, you start to really look at yourself and look at your life, and you wonder why. So I guess maybe it's more like the feeling, equating of like a midlife crisis feeling. Why? And you realize that life can't be like this. And I actually remember sitting with one of my former colleagues, now friend, Marie, shout out if you're listening, in a diner in one morning. And I was just like, there has to be more to life than this. It has to be bigger than this, as I was stuck in my dead-end corporate job. And that's what I'm talking about. I feel like for me, that was my sign of my spiritual awakening, is just wanting something bigger. It's shifting your priorities. It's starting to focus on your life a little bit more. And as a result of that, and wanting to seek to understand something bigger than yourself, or understand what your true life purpose is, that's when you start kind of peeking into the window of maybe energies, maybe guides, maybe emotions. But either way, it all stems from this urge to find deeper meaning and purpose with yourself in your life. And what can cause a spiritual awakening? I mean, it really can be anything. For me, I was just genuinely like dissatisfied with my life. So that was me. And I think I talked in the previous podcast about how my son sees spirit. So that definitely helped, I'm going to say, expedite and speed up my spiritual awakening. But you might have a spiritual awakening, and I've heard every reason under the sun what prompts it. So I don't think there's one magic bullet that causes it, but it could be the death of a close family member. It could be all of a sudden everything in your life breaks down. You have a dark night of the soul, so to speak, where everything starts breaking and falling apart. It could be that you have an accident, or you have a major medical issue, or a near-death experience. It's kind of all of these things. I would say what I've mentioned is probably the most common, but certainly if you have a different experience, or if you feel like you're going through it right now and you don't have a trigger, I'm going to say, like other people, totally fine. That's normal. And the spiritual awakening can be a pretty heavy and long process. But what's interesting to me is pretty consistently with people I've talked to, the very beginning of their spiritual awakening is like spiritual overdrive. And what that can feel like or show up as is you start hearing voices in your head. You start knowing things before they're going to happen. You start seeing things in a whole different way. And you honestly feel like you've turned from like Clark Kent into Superman, and that you're like, holy shit, this is such an amazing superpower. And the why behind that, in my opinion, is that spirit gives you like everything all at once to let you know what your potential is and let you know what you're made of. So going from having zero, I'm going to say seemingly zero knowledge or abilities before, suddenly you're at level 1000 and you can do and hear and see all of these things all at once. And, this might vary a little bit for you, but in my experience, it is like so powerful and so much of an ego trip. And it feels like, where has this been all my life? I have been waiting for this. If I had this years ago, everything would be better. I wouldn't be where I'm at. And that you can chart a whole new course in your life and where you want to go. The reality of that is that spirit is just letting you know what your potential is and giving you peeks into the tools that you can use to better guide your life and set it on the right course that's going to be most alignment with you and your soul in this incarnation. So if you feel like you lost your shit at the beginning of your spiritual awakening and that you felt completely crazy and you felt like there was this whole world that you didn't know about and now you're an expert on it. Yeah, that happened to me too. 100% happened to me too. And I'm pretty sure I thought I lost my mind. Like I probably could have been tossed into an asylum during my spiritual awakening because I went that crazy. Like I was hearing voices in my head. I was hearing thoughts external to myself. It was ridiculous. And what's so interesting is that for me on that spiritual awakening journey and seeing the possibility of who I was, again, it was this really big ego trip where I thought I finally found my purpose. Here I am. I'm going to go and use these amazing tools and I'm going to help everybody and I'm going to solve everybody's problem and I'm going to be the hero at the end of the day. So you can imagine that eventually, my spiritual awakening all crashed down when I realized that I still had to live, as the lovely Hannah McIntyre says, my muggle life. I still had to go back and do my muggle job. And it was almost like the spiritual awakening created this faction, this rift, this in my head, I'm seeing like the continental divide. Things are just, it's a whole new shift in realizing how far out of alignment I am and where I want to go versus where I've been. And that is so hard. So it's almost like spirit gives you this high where you see everything and your whole world is amazing. And you're like, this is exactly who I am. And this is exactly where I'm meant to do. And everything feels amazing. And then you bring it back into your physical body and your real world and it crashes down and it's like depressing, right? And it's exhausting. And you realize that even though you have these amazing gifts, you still have to fucking pay the bills. You still have to put up with shitty relationships in your life. And this is what I call kind of the beginning of the clearing. Because once you realize what your potential is, and then spirit brings back to what your reality is, you see how far alignment out of you are. And you almost immediately start going into clearing mode. And when I say clearing mode, you start clearing out the bullshit in your life. There's a lot of swears in this, apologies. The bullshit in your life that doesn't fit anymore. You start clearing out the relationships that don't serve you because you have, again, that new perspective, new transparency into your life from a whole new perspective. So you start realizing, I don't want this relationship anymore. I don't want this job anymore. I don't want this house anymore. And that may sound really, really scary, but what you're doing is you're removing the clutter and removing the daily, weekly, like tasks or activities or energy or all of the above that, and you're recognizing how it doesn't fit or align with who you are anymore. And you start removing them one at a time from your life. Now there's stuff that is going to be kind of in that gray space where it doesn't fit cleanly, but you don't want to get rid of it. And that's a whole other podcast episode, because then you need to figure out what can you do? What are the components of that you can kind of remove to bring it more into alignment with who you are? So that happens too. So I guess it's more at a higher level, a macro level, in terms of actual things you need to take out of your life versus components of things that you need to keep, removing what doesn't serve you anymore. But that's that whole idea of that spiritual awakening, is just, again, knowing what is most in alignment for you and removing the stuff that doesn't. And I guess now is an important time to kind of talk about how the spiritual awakening, a lot of people, like, it's always changing and it's always evolving, right? So at the beginning, we're talking about this high, this amazing feeling. Then we're talking about lows. And now we're talking about active doing and being more active in removing and aligning to your highest self. So as you can already tell, what you can expect with a spiritual awakening is to constantly change and constantly feel different things. And that's because you're moving through this energy, you're moving through this unknown space. And as you learn more, you're going to change your perspective, you're going to grow more, you're going to do different things. So as you move through your awakening, the best thing you can do is surrender and trust, and allow yourself to be open to whatever comes your way, and be grateful with your feelings and the actions that you're feeling at any moment, just because you need to surrender and trust to it. And the things and experiences and feelings that you're going through for a reason. So instead of acting on every single whim, I would say take time to create space. And that's what you're doing when you're clearing the clutter. You're creating space for yourself to pause, to reflect, understand, why do I feel this way? Why do I want to do this? What's causing this? And the best way to do that while you're moving through this, again, is to probably find some time for yourself. Like, if you can meditate. If you like to journal. But as you move through it, get a notebook about your spiritual awakening and write things down. How am I feeling today? And coming from somebody who hates journaling with a passion, even as a young child, just sidebar, as a young girl, I hated journals because I knew whatever I wrote down today, I would look back on and be like, what a fucking idiot. So, coming from someone who truly hates it, I think it's more important, not necessarily to go back and future reflect on it, but it's more important to just write it down, to have an outlet for it. And there we go. That's why I need to say this out loud, so myself can get over my ridiculous fear of journaling. But write it down so that energy moves through you and out of you, through your pen, through your pencil, onto the paper, so that you can process it and move past it, and again, creating mental space for what's to come. So create space, surrender and trust. And of course, it's not an easy journey. So if you need to chat with a support system, do that. Talk to your loved ones. They're not going to think you're crazy. They know who you are. And they're always going to want to support you in no matter what you're doing, right? And honestly, if they don't support you, then that's part of the clearing as well. So lean on your support system. Talk to people who you can trust. If you are somebody who doesn't have anyone that you can trust, and I know there's a lot of you out there in your spiritual awakening, go find a local person. Go talk to, see if there's a spiritual circle, see if there's somebody that does tarot card readings, angel readings. I would almost gear more towards like the Akashic Records people or the mediumship people, just because you sure as hell bet they've been through it too. Tarot readers, I don't know. Have you been through it? I assume yes, but I don't know. But I would just say, lean on people. If you're feeling totally crazy, get that external perspective so that you know that you're not crazy and that you're just uncovering all the bits and pieces about yourself that you've shoved down for years. And it is uncomfortable. It is terrifying. So you need someone a support system that can support you with that. And then lastly, don't do this the way I did when I went off the deep end. I mean, I was off the deep end for probably about a week and a half. Like, I'm pretty sure I didn't eat for a week. I did not care about my physical, like, I don't know if I showered, like my brain was in such a mind fuck that I couldn't even function. I called out sick to work for like 5 days in a row because I couldn't fucking function. That's how intense my spiritual awakening of, but that's me, that's me. My spirit, everything I do is fast, 100 miles per hour. And then I get through it. So that's my MO. Your spiritual awakening, I hope, I pray, is not as brutal as mine or as fast as mine. I hope that you can move through it gracefully and really reflect more versus me wanting to, go through it like a bat out of hell. So you want to make sure you're staying grounded. You're focusing on self-care. You're focusing on like taking a shower, going for walks, maybe getting some exercise, getting some of that energy out and trying to balance, your physical and your spiritual life. Do not do what I did and just focus on the spiritual life and ignore everything else. And then I think as you go through this, it really just takes time and self-reflection. So big picture, the whole point of spiritual awakening is being open to how you are out of alignment in your life and spirit encouraging you to learn the tools to allow you to get back into alignment. This isn't about you becoming, the world's best medium, the world's best whatever, right? This isn't like, hey, here's this whole other level, this whole other side to you. This is more about learning the tips and tools and life hacks so that you can become your best self. And I think that's a misconception a lot of people have about spiritual awakening, because a lot of people experience this and it comes from an ego perspective, and they think they're here to use these tools to solve the world's problems, to solve world hunger, to fix everything that's broken in their in everybody else's life. So a lot of people who go through this spiritual awakening, and you're going to see it now, watch on social media, everything they do is external to them. So they are acting as the eternal hero, trying to fix and solve everything else outside of themselves. But in reality, the spiritual awakening is about going inward and focusing on yourself and aligning you to your best life and your best self. And by fixing you, you naturally start fixing the world around you, but it always has to come from the inside out. It can't go from the outside in, because you are never going to fix everybody else's problems. That's not your job. That's not your role. That's not what we're here to do. We're not here to fix everybody else's problems. And instead, you need to start working on you and what your life is and how you want to show up to the world every single day in this lifetime. So that's really what a spiritual awakening is. Along your awakening, spirit might do some pretty rad stuff. They might do some pretty rad stuff. They might do some kind of mean stuff to break you down. My spiritual awakening, my guides essentially broke me down into a million pieces, broke my whole world apart in the matter of a week. It happened. It was crazy. Shattered everything that I thought was true about me, and essentially told me I needed to start fresh. And that's because, and they're telling me in my mind right now, and that's because I built such a structure and such a identity around myself that it was really, there's no way I could have repaired it, and they needed to essentially break me, so I had to start from scratch, because nothing that I was is going to serve me in the next phase of my life. So if you are feeling like literally everything fell apart for you, I want you to know you're not alone. You're not alone, because we are humans and we are really good at doing the human thing and following rules and following laws and following social structures to the point where that is our norm and that is our entire life. But the awakening will allow you to look at that more objectively and almost deconstruct it and reconstruct it in a way where you are you and you are functioning the best way you can. And society be damned whether or not they're gonna align to who you want to be and what you want to do, because we need to show up more authentically. I think all of us looking at social media know that no one shows up authentically, right? We have people that market to us 24/7. We have people with filters on their faces and videos. No judgment. I'm just saying it's not showing up authentically, right? We have so many people that are just trying to be better than the next person and put on the credit card debt and buy the big houses and get the nice cars for a social status, right? And this is what I'm talking about. These are the structures that you break down when you embrace a spiritual way of being. You realize that these physical things, these social norms, these constructs that we're surrounded with every single moment of every single day, that is, I'm going to say, the facade of the human experience, the facade of living here on planet Earth. And you know you are an evolved soul. If you're listening to this, I want you to know you're an evolved soul because you're choosing to see past those constructs, that mirage of the human, and trying to find a way to come home to your soul, to your spirit, and to come into alignment with what you actually came here to do. So every single one of you that's listening to this is not a new soul thing. This is not like a, I've only reincarnated 5 times thing, right? Like this is a thing where you are coming out of human consciousness and into soul consciousness. And that is fucking powerful. And I want you to know that. And Spirit wants you to know that if you've gone through this, you are stronger than you ever thought you were. And if you're going through this, know that there is purpose in uncovering the false narratives and the false behaviors that you do to survive on a daily basis. And you will always come out the other end better than you could ever imagine. And what this looks like after you go through this spiritual awakening is you're going to find, again, your human and your spirit or your soul come into more alignment with each other. So that means that you're not going to falsely or automatically believe all these things that media tells you or anything like that. Like essentially you're going to step away from the typical societal norms, the cultural norms that we are all accustomed to, and things that I'm trying to teach my kids that aren't real, but that's beside the point. You are going to come more in line and start to understand your intuition. So that you might see your intuition increase. You might see a stronger connection with spirit. You might see more signs. You will work towards figuring out how to be in alignment with your true purpose and your life path here in the physical world. That might be you keep the same job, but now you have stronger boundaries, or maybe you stay in the same industry or company, but you're doing a different role that feels better for yourself. Or maybe you keep the job and you start finding side passion projects that allow you to, again, be more in alignment with who you are as a soul and doing things that fill your cup. It can look any number of ways. It should also bring in a sense of peace, of trust, even during challenges, knowing that there's a greater picture, there's a greater plan at play, and trusting that the universe is going to bring you to where you need to go. It will also, again, as you come into more alignment, I'm just going to say it like your vibration kind of starts to raise, right? As you come into more alignment with who you are as a soul, you come above the earthly lower level vibrations, and naturally your energetic vibration just raises. So as it raises, you're going to attract better things into your life. You're going to attract better opportunities, better relationships. Things are going to get easier for you, which is, I think, I heard somebody just sigh in my head. So, or like, like, thank goodness. So know that that is absolutely going to be true for you as well. So I'm laughing, whoever side I heard you in my head. So you need to know that there is method to the madness. There's purpose to this, and that this is all part of being a human and evolving. And I hate to use the word, but also ascending, to a new level, a new vibration, a new you. So I just wanted you to say, I am so proud of you. If you've been through this, if you're going through this, these are just such amazing invitations to embrace a more authentic and purpose-driven life. So again, trust the process, trust your guides, and recognize that any challenge they put in your way is not, it's for growth. I'm hesitating there because I just want to say, because I didn't say it yet, that spiritual awakenings is not about spirit and your team and your loved ones removing all obstacles so your life is easy. That's not what this is about at all. Absolutely not. It's more about removing the parts of your life that don't serve you so that you can become your best self. So they will often, your guides will put challenges in your way. They will shove you down that cliff if you need to experience what it's like to have a broken life. Like that's what they do. They will push you in very uncomfortable ways and challenge you in very uncomfortable ways so that you can learn and grow from it and come out the other side a better, more aligned person. So the way to take any spiritual or spirit guide challenge or life challenge is to say, thank you, may I have another, and just move through it. That's the reality. That's the reality. People do not like it when I say that, but that's the reality. So again, this is such an amazing opportunity for you to reflect on who you are, what you're here to do, and allow you the opportunity to be your best self in this lifetime. And who doesn't want that? Who doesn't want that? So there you go. That is my experience and my understandings of spiritual awakenings. If you have questions about this, let me know. But again, I just wanted to thank you so much for being here and empowering your soul to become your highest and best self. I love you all. Take care.